Hi, and it's Kevin Wright here, back with another property finance video. And what we're going to talk about this week, we're going to have a little drill down into auctions. Now, the perception for people that are maybe not that experienced in property is auctions are the place there you go to get the bargains. So keep watching, because I'll explain why that's not always the case. Stick around. Okay, so auctions. Yep, there's some good things about auctions, and one of them is that it's quite definitive. In other words, you know pretty quickly if you've bought a property or if you haven't. So there's none of the messing around that you can sometimes get for weeks on end or even months on end with a sale, either privately or through an estate agent. So auctions are quite definitive in that way, so that's good. The perception is, and I see this a lot with people that are newer into property, is that auctions are where you're going to pick up bargain properties. And there are certainly bargains to be had at auctions, but it's not a hive of cheap properties that maybe people think it is. So I'm going to run through 5 key things that you need to do to keep yourself safe at auction. So we're going to look at research, we're going to look at working your numbers out, we're going to look at making an offer before the auction and also after the auction in certain circumstances, and we're also going to look at getting your finance sorted. So let's take them one at a time. Okay, research. So usually properties have gone into auction for a reason, and the reason is there's something wrong with them. Now the challenge is, first of all, whatever's wrong with it, can you A, identify it, and can you B, fix it? Because there's no point buying a property at auction with a problem that you can't fix. For example, a deal I looked at recently on behalf of one of my students was a property where the back end of the house was literally 4 foot from a stream. And there's a problem that you can't solve. You need to understand what state of repair it is. There's probably going to be something wrong with them. People tend not to put pristine properties in auction most of the time. They're what I like to call the doer-uppers, and try and work out what value that property would have in a done-up condition. Most auctions have these little viewing slots of about 2 hours, and they'll have 2 or 3 of those, maybe more. So see if you can get yourself along to one of those. Now, if you don't know enough about property to be able to look around a property and work out what's wrong with it, you need to take someone with you who can. Now, that could be a builder or someone else with some construction background, because you can't afford to be forking out for surveys by Rick's valuers on every property you're interested in bidding. That's going to cost you a few £100 a time, and more often than not you're going to get outbid, so you're going to end up spending a few £100 for a property you don't own. So you've got to be confident enough, or have someone with you that's confident enough, that they can assess the stability and structural soundness of a property just by going around and doing the viewing. So research is important. Likewise, reading the legal pack, because there can be some nasty surprises hidden in the legal pack. So once you've done all your research, it's time to get your calculator out. This is the second thing, get your numbers right. So you want to work through all the costs. What's the cost of the repairs? What's the cost of the legal fees, valuation fees, all this type of thing? Because you're going to have, unless you're buying it cash, you're going to have it valued. So that all has to come into it. Stamp duty too. So what's your cost of buying it? If you're borrowing money, what's your finance cost from wherever that's, including all the fees and interest? And critically, how much profit do you want from the deal? Because hey, that's the only reason you're doing this, isn't it? To make a profit. Because if you're not going to make a profit, why bother to go to auction and buy a scabby old property to do up? You could just go and buy it all nicely done up from an estate agent. So the profit factor has got to be there as well. And once again, check any additional cost or fees that you as the buyer are obligated to that are contained in the legal pack. So once you've got all your costs, take that away from what you've worked out as a done up value, and that really is the maximum you can bid. Once it goes over that, hey, none of the other costs are diminishing. The only thing that's getting smaller if you go over the bid price you set yourself is your profit. Now, if you get the auction catalogue in time, you'll have enough time to do all this well before the auction date. So why not try a pre-auction offer? 19 times out of 20, it'll get rejected. But hey, you never know, do you? Those that don't reach the reserve price don't sell at auction. Now that gives you an opportunity to go along after the auction and make an offer. It's still sold under auction conditions, so in most auctions, you've still only got 28 days to purchase. Unless you've got a bundle of cash, you're going to need some finance to complete your auction purchase. Now, here's where it's really important to bear in mind that you've got, in most cases, 28 days to complete the purchase. Trying to get a mortgage done in 28 days is going to be extremely challenging, even more so in post-COVID times where pretty much everything bureaucratic is operating on a slower time schedule than it was pre-COVID. So before you bid at auction, you've got to really assess how you're going to finance it. Are you realistically really going to get a mortgage through in 28 days? Because if you fail to do that, you're putting at jeopardy the 10% deposit that you've got to put down on auction day. So you need to think very carefully about that. And the reality is that the vast majority of properties bought at auction are bought either with cash, real cash, or with bridging finance. So when I said work out your finance costs a couple of minutes ago, then if you're using bridging finance, you need to get really specific on what that's going to cost. Now, the vast majority of bridgers are geared up to release the money within 14 to 28 days. And we've certainly brokered numerous deals that have come in within that time frame comfortably. And while we're talking about finance, let's talk about the legals as well, because you're going to need to get the right solicitor. And that's because bridging conveyancing is more onerous than mortgage conveyancing. So there we are, 5 tips to keep you safer at auction before you find out the hard way that everything you see on Homes Under the Hammer doesn't necessarily happen at auction. So every story doesn't have a happy ending. So make sure to get all your ducks in a row, as the saying goes. And if you're going to buy at auction, make sure that your auction purchase does end with a happy ending. So that's me done for this week. And hey, have you subscribed yet? If not, click the button here. Now, before you go, there's one thing I want to show you.
If you enjoyed watching this video, did you know every Monday morning at 8:30, I do a live Facebook Q&A. So if you want to start the week with checking out some answers to your property finance questions, click the link here.